Hello Disney fans, here again with Becky, who is currently enjoying the grass a lot more than paying attention to anything else. Some days, gotta ride your horse, you just gotta go out and hang out with them, spend time with them. Well, today we're going to be talking about the second of my Triple Crown of Disney movies, and that is The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit. I'm going to let Becky finish his lunch, and I'll rejoin you back at my place. The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit was made in 1968, and for some weird reason it is not on Disney Plus. It could possibly be that it's not that well known of a movie, although if that's the reason, I can think of other things on Disney Plus that are less well known than that. It could also be because there is a running joke that the horse likes beer, although that isn't brought up a whole lot in the movie, and nobody shows anybody getting drunk. It's more like buddies enjoying a cold drink together and cementing friendship with it. The actor who plays the father in here is Dean Jones, who is probably best known to Disney fans for That Dark Cat and Herbie. And of course, I'm going to be talking about those movies in their own time. He plays the character of Fred Bolton, who has two main problems. One is his daughter is horse obsessed, which, of course, my parents could really identify with that one. There's also the problem of he has to come up with a new ad campaign. Both problems are giving him headaches one day at work.
Catherine, am I reading this right?
Here's the address.
$900?
That's right.
For riding lessons?
Ernie, please don't knock my little Randy to see him in action.
Honestly, if I'm going by just the first part of this movie, I could see why it didn't do all that well at the box office. It's a bit confusing because you got the two plots coinciding. You can see his coworkers trying to get his attention with the latest ad gimmick while he's trying to figure out the bills. His coworker's pretty much the only funny part of this scene, I think. He's played by Maury Amsterdam, and if you're a fan of classic television, you'll recognize him as Buddy Sorrell from The Dick Van Dyke Show. So I enjoyed seeing him in this movie. It takes a long time, though, to get this plot started. Things kick off when his daughter comes to him that night and tells him flat out she wants her own horse.
Daddy?
Hmm.
Daddy, I want a horse of my own more than anything I've ever wanted in the whole world. Susie says if I had a horse of my own, it would give me confidence, and I'd be in the ribbons at the really big shows.
I should probably say here that Susie is his daughter Helen's riding instructor. Now, he is a widower, and Susie is an attractive woman. You can guess where this is going to add up to. And that's one thing that people say against this movie I've seen in different reviews, is it is a little bit predictable. But then a lot of good Disney movies are, and sometimes that's okay in a movie. Well, now something that Helen said plants a little bit of an idea in his brain. She'd be winning the ribbons at the big shows if she had her own horse to give her confidence. He needs to find a high-class clientele. He needs to win over a high-class clientele for one of his clients' stomach medications, Aspercel. They want him to advertise that to the crowd that's going to all your big social events. That includes horse shows.
A gimmick. A gimmick, my kingdom for a gimmick.
He goes to his boss and says, I got the way to make Aspercel a high-class product. My daughter rides. If you'll buy her a horse that she can ride at all the high-class horse shows, we'll name that horse Aspercel, and people will associate him with the product, and everybody who goes to all these big shows will see the horse. His boss goes for it. And now a couple things that I should point out here. they make a big deal out of Aspercell costing $5,000. Today, if you're going for a show horse, you're not going to touch the hoof of a show horse for $5,000. A fun horse that you can ride around as a pet, yes, you could get that for well below $5,000 if you know what you're doing. They also comment that the $900 that he's got to pay for the riding lessons is for 7 months worth of lessons. The stables that I'm familiar with don't charge anywhere near that for lessons. So this is probably, and that's by today's standards. So at that time, this is probably a pretty upscale type of stable. Well, they bring the new horse home, and she's delighted with him.
Accommodations?
Okay, please, please, please do not ever just lead a horse by the halter unless they're loose and you got in an emergency and you had to grab them quick. If you lead a horse by the halter, if they spook, you're going to have a loose horse, you're going to probably have broken fingers, it's not going to end well. And the movie does portray this realistically. Luckily, Aspercell knows where he's going.
It's new.
Aspie!
Hey,
Did you see that, Daddy? Did you see him jumping?
Hopefully next time she attaches a rope to that halter. Now, this does, even though it's a scene that shows what not to do with horses, it does end well, and it also shows Aspie's personality. He's a fun-loving horse. He loves to jump, loves what he's doing. He knows where he belongs, and he's a horse that's easy to get along with. However, things don't go that well when Helen shows him for the first time.
No, Aspie, no!
I have to say I admire her being able to stay on with the horse going sideways like that. But the thing is, she is honestly not ready to show. She and Aspie have not bonded yet, and she's got to get to be a better rider. She's got natural talent, but she's still got a lot to learn. Now, in that clip, you might have noticed the young guy sitting there. That's the young Kurt Russell. He plays the part of Ronnie, who's a young man who takes his sister around to all the horse shows. He's not into horses himself, but he has picked up a bit about them. And of course, he and Helen are going to hook up. Really amazing to see actors that I'm familiar with looking older when they were that young. So I thought that was neat that he was in there. Now, of course, Fred's job depends on this horse winning. He doesn't tell Susie that, but she gets the impression at first, he just tells her this horse has got to win. My daughter has to win 3 medals in order to qualify for the big show at Washington. She is disgusted by that at first, thinking, oh yeah, you're one of those dads who's got to push his kid to the max to make sure that they win every time. And any trainer's going to hate parents like that. She doesn't understand yet that his job is on the line. However, she does agree to give Helen private lessons, and I like the way these lessons are depicted here.
Try. Come on, Aspie, communicate.
One thing I love in this scene is the lessons are focused on building the bond between Helen and Aspie. And one of the ways they're doing that is Helen is riding him bareback. Riding bareback is a wonderful way to learn the way that a particular horse feels, the way his movements feel when you're on his back. The first time I ever rode Bucky as his owner, and I wouldn't even be sure I'd call this a ride, I was just being led around. But my mom knew that my first ride on Bucky had gone extremely badly. He didn't throw me, but it wasn't fun to ride him because the poor pony was being put through torture, basically, with the kind of bit he had, with the way he'd been trained. It was not a good scenario. And we started to change all of that one time when I was out with him in the field, and my mom had basically had it with me saying he's only a driving pony, I'm never getting on his back again. She convinced me to get up on him bareback, and it was amazing. It was a really incredible experience. And shortly after that, I rode another pony bareback for the first time. And even one lesson like that really improved me as a rider. So they're portraying horsemanship here really realistically. And that's something that not a lot of movies can say. Well, Helen's finally ready to compete again and to start winning. And she and Ashby do win a lot. But it isn't good enough for Fred's boss. And Helen overhears what they say.
A chance to level with me. I think this whole campaign is something you cooked up just so your daughter could get a horse for nothing.
Now, wait a minute. I've got faith in this
I don't
idea.
want faith. I want that international class publicity you promised to get me.
This obviously puts Helen under a load of pressure. She thought he was just showing for fun. Now she knows she has to win this. Her dad's job is on the line. And that's a lot of responsibility for her. And of course she's going to get nervous. She does win the second of the 3 medals that she needs that day. But she loses the next one. There's one more chance for her to win that 3rd medal and qualify for Washington. But everyone's feeling down about it, including Ash Purcell. He jumps his paddock fence, and he goes looking through the window to try to get a little bit of sympathy from Fred.
Well, look who's here, loser of the week. Back to your paddock, chum. No beer for you. You blew Helen's medal, but good. One more like that, it's the glue factory for both of us. Oh, I know. One of the judges had a thing against gray horses.
That line might seem like just a random throwaway joke. Oh, the judge was prejudiced against gray horses, huh? That actually is not far from the truth. At a lot of horse shows, they'll have more than one judge, not just to get everybody catching everything that one judge might not catch. You know, a bump of a pole here, a misstep there if it's a dressage test. But there's also more than one judge because some judges are prejudiced against certain riders or certain horses. I remember when I made some calls to register Bucky for our first and last show together. The person I called was in charge of the county fair, which has a horse show connected to it every year. And we got talking, and she said, "What's your horse's name?" And I said, "Well, his registered name is a Buckanite, but we all call him Bucky." And right away she freezes. She says, "That Hackney?" And I'm like, "Why do you say it like that? What's wrong with a Hackney?" And I have heard that Hackneys are often called whack knees among show people. There is a prejudice against them. And unfortunately, poor Bucky had more prejudice than usual against him because people know which stable he originally came from, and they know what the horses there were like after the way they were treated. So, poor Bucky's name is basically mud around this area, except those of us who actually know how much he's changed since then, and who he really is. Sorry, getting sentimental over my pony there, but anyway, Ashby doesn't take this too well, and he actually leads Fred on a merry chase. And we do get another beer joke there where he's running after him with a can of beer. Oh, hey, Ashby, come get the beer. Interesting thing with that, horses actually do occasionally get given beer, especially race horses for some weird reason. I'm not giving that to Bucky, but for them to make that joke in there at that time, it's not that far off, not that bad, I don't think, to exclude it from Disney Plus. But anyway, eventually Fred does catch Ashby. Or rather, Ashby gets tired of running around and lets himself be caught.
I am never going to speak to you again as long as I live.
Maybe it's not so much Ashby got tired as he finally took pity on Fred. He also takes pity on him again. They're a bit far from home, and it's going to be a long walk. After a long struggle of trying to get on Ashby's back, Ashby does finally help him out.
Okay, wise guy. Why didn't you do that in the first place?
I have seriously got to teach Bucky to do that. And he's smart enough he could learn. This is my favorite part of the movie. There's a lot of beautiful footage of Helen competing on Ashby, but you don't really see Ashby's personality that way. He's a fun horse, he's an intelligent horse, and to me, I love seeing the footage of the competition because I can appreciate the beauty of the horses doing what they're doing. And I'm sure even if you're not really that much of a horse person, you could probably say, oh yeah, that looks amazing. But I can see how that would slow the picture down for someone who isn't a horse fanatic. Myself, I enjoy both, but like I said, this is my favorite part. Just seeing him be him. Well, Fred is not a good rider, but Ashby's cooperating with him and they're having a peaceful ride home. One big problem. Helen came home to find Ashby missing, and Fred's aunt, who lives with them, called the police. Fred's about to get arrested for stealing his own horse. And when the police show up, they show up with sirens blaring, and of course that spooks poor Ashby, and when he spooks and takes off, they add to it by firing guns into the air. How stupid are they?
Come on, baby. Let's stop for a beer, huh? Sorry. Hey, you pull over. I'm trying, you idiot.
Of course, they have to work in another joke about Ashby liking beer. But I do love that Fred calls out the cop on being an idiot. You had to be pretty stupid to not know that a horse is going to freak out at a loud noise. Sure, some horses are conditioned to accept that and realize that they won't hurt them, but the average horse is not going to like a loud noise. There is something interesting that happens here, though, that's going to be a big help later. As Ashby takes off with Fred on board, he jumps everything in sight, including a 7-foot fence. That's going to come in important later. I also have to say, for a movie that's otherwise very realistic as far as horsemanship goes, this is the one unrealistic part. Fred is riding bareback here with just a halter, not even a bridle, so there's no bit in the horse's mouth telling him where to go. He's not used to riding. He's never ridden before in his life, probably. He's not going to be staying on going over all those jumps. It's been a long, hard day for everybody once they finally get this whole mess unraveled. And Ronnie shows up to take Helen out on a date, not knowing just how bad it's been. And he's frustrated that all she seems to think about is horse shows, until he learns the truth.
Look at me, I even wore a tie. Isn't there anything you think of besides horse shows?
I hate horse shows.
Hating horse shows is something I can personally relate to. When I first got Bucky, yeah, I did have dreams about winning ribbons with him, but not because I wanted to be winning things that I wanted to be, you know, in the spotlight, having people look at me and say, "Oh yeah, check out her pony and how he won." That wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was to be looking back on those ribbons someday and remembering all the good times that we had at shows together. But after the way that show went, seeing how miserable Bucky was in the show environment, I knew I don't need ribbons to look back on to remember all the great times Bucky and I are having. I'm a sentimentalist, I like mementos, but I have those memories as part of me and they always will be. And the memories that Bucky and I would make at any show wouldn't be happy ones because no ribbon in the world is worth putting him through that. Now, seeing how miserable Helen is, Ronnie finds out that it's about her dad's job. She tells him, "Look, here's the situation." But he misunderstands to think that her dad is forcing this on her. When her dad doesn't even know, she realizes that he's under pressure. And I give Ronnie credit here for talking to her dad about it.
I was waiting for you. There's something I gotta say, even if it does get you upset.
Upset?
You may really get mad, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Mr. Bolton, I've always admired you.
Is that supposed to make me mad?
I always thought you were a real nice guy and a real swell father. I admired you.
Until tonight.
Yes, sir. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I know when I have kids, if there's a situation where they don't want to do something, well, I'd never make them do it. Even if you're...
This leads to a heartwarming moment between Fred and Helen, where he tells her, "Hey, you should have told me that you knew about this. No way are you competing again." And she argues with him at first, like, "Oh no, even if I want to, it's okay. I can still win that third medal at this other show and still get to Washington for you to save your job." And he just is firm about it, tells her, no, your happiness isn't worth it. And what really melts the heart in this scene is his reaction when she asks if they'll have to sell Ashby.
Daddy, will we have to sell Ashby?
Are you kidding? Of course we're not selling Ashby. He's a member of the family.
That's something that I really wish more people understood and believed in. There's, of course, there's people who will not keep a cat or a dog for their whole life. They'll get rid of them if they're having a baby, if they move, any number of other excuses. But it's more common to think of them as a permanent member of the family than it is with a horse. A horse or a pony is kept until their owner reaches the next show level, until they get too old to do their job, until they have an injury or an illness. Horses aren't seen as a member of the family the way a cat or a dog is. And that's sad because absolutely they have feelings the same as any other creature does. So I really loved hearing him say, yeah, Ashby's not for sale. That ain't gonna happen. Well, that doesn't exactly mean that things are gonna be smooth sailing, though. He's still probably gonna be out of a job because this campaign is done. Or is it? When he tells Susie what happened when they were going on their merry chase from the police, she starts thinking.
Ashby went 7 feet.
I personally went 10 feet for a flash finish into a lad house. You will tell me, old boy, won't you, when you plan to stop that fast again?
7 feet is an incredible height for a horse to jump. The world record is 8'1". Now I do have to give a little side note here. Ashby almost reminds me of another horse named Snowman, who is a real life horse, not a movie horse. Snowman had a lot more humble origins than Ashby does, though. Snowman was bought to be saved from slaughter, and the guy who rescued him was a nice guy, but he didn't think Snowman was quite what he was looking for, so he sold him to a friend of his up the road. Well, Snowman jumped the fence and continued to run back to his farm every time, no matter how high they built the fence. Pretty soon, the guy that Snowman was sold to said, "I've had it with building the fence any higher. This horse is clearing ridiculous heights. He's all yours." That finally gave the guy the idea to train him as a jumper, and the two of them became legends together. So just a little side story there that if you're a horse lover, you might find interesting. Ashby can jump, but now the question is, who's going to ride him? The answer is, Susie's going to step up and volunteer. And not just in the regular division. She's going to take him all the way to the highest levels of the Washington show, the open jumper class. One bit of a sticky spot. She's going to need to get somebody back into her life to help train her. Her ex-fiancé. Now, Fred isn't happy about that.
Archer Madison.
Isn't he devastating, Daddy?
Devastating. Hey, he's the one that Susie almost got.
I know. She told me.
If I was going to change something about this movie, I would change the way the relationship between Susie and Fred develops. It seems like it's a bit rushed to me. We see them have a few friendly conversations, but the idea that he's jealous of another guy being with her by this point, it seems a little bit forced, a little bit fast, even though we do know quite a few months have passed over the course of the movie, given the number of shows that have been competed in. But there wasn't really enough shown of them developing a relationship. They could have had them talk more in the stands watching Susie compete. Maybe a few moments while they were waiting for her to get ready for a show where they had a conversation. They could have done that aspect of it a little bit better, I think. But however they arrived at this point, Fred definitely cares about Susie now. He's not only concerned that she's going to end up with her ex-fiancé, he's concerned she's going to get hurt in the show. Given how high the fences are, this isn't an unrealistic fear. And we do see a few riders wipe out at the show. Now, of course, Susie is going to ultimately win. It comes down, of course, every movie has to have a nail biter. It comes down to a tie-breaking jump off, which Susie and Ashby win by just a fraction of a second. It wouldn't be a Disney movie without a happy ending. Of course, Susie and Ashby win the big competition, which means Fred keeps his job. Better yet, he ends up becoming vice president of the advertising company. Susie lets him know she has no interest in her ex-fiancé. However, she is of course grateful that he got them to that level. Helen is delighted that her dad and Susie are ending up together, and she even asks when the wedding is. Now, it has a wonderful happy ending, and if you're a horse person like me, you're gonna really enjoy this, but it's not a perfect movie. Like I said, it is a little bit slow at the beginning. It does need a little bit more development in the romance department if they're going to put a romantic angle on it. But overall, it's very enjoyable. The horse that plays Aspercell was named Alvarado. He did win a Patsy Award for this, which is the animal equivalent of an Oscar. I couldn't find out what else happened to him after that. I don't know if he went on to have a career as a show jumper or if he was in other movies with horses. Be interesting to know, but he definitely had the talent to be a professional show jumper. But he was also a great acting horse, and that's interesting that they relied on particularly one horse because usually in a movie involving animals, they'll have 3, maybe 4 or 5 animals play that role because one animal might be better at doing another task that needs to be in the scene than another. Maybe one horse could jump better, maybe another one would interact with the cast better, but this horse did it all, which is pretty cool. I like that this story breaks the traditional horse story mold too. If you watch a lot of horse stories like I do, read a lot of horse stories, they fall into one of 3 different categories. The girl wants a horse, but the horse belongs to somebody else, or they're too expensive for her to buy, but in the end of the story she gets them somehow. The horse is sick or weak, injured, something wrong with it, but the main character ends up turning the horse into a champion in spite of that. Or the horse is a wild horse that ends up bonding with somebody, with a human who has an equally tough attitude, and because they understand each other, they form a magical bond. Those are basically your 3 typical horse stories. This one's different. And it does offer one of the most realistic depictions of having a horse that I've seen in a movie. Helen isn't a perfect rider. She does have to work at it, even though she does have natural skill. She and Ashby don't automatically have a magical bond between them. It is beautiful once you have that bond, but it doesn't happen overnight. It does show that there can be hardships at horse shows. You see the horses wiping out, you see riders fall, and it does also show that not everybody who loves horses wants to compete with them. And there's nothing wrong with having a horse that's just your companion, that you just have fun with. So overall, because of those reasons, I think The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit is a really enjoyable movie, and especially if you love horses like I do, you should give it a try. I hope you enjoyed this review. I will see you for the final leg of our Triple Crown series of Disney movies when I will be talking about Secretariat. See you then, and until next time, remember the magic.